Go team, go.
10 seconds. Live, which makes us live. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I am well. And yourself?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little hot today. We got the word sort of late. I didn't set up all the lighting and shadows and all that stuff. So I'm going to be bright.
You're always bright, Dave. You're like a
Which
shining beacon on the hill.
leads to the other question. What the heck are you doing here? And for that matter, what the heck am I doing here?
What are we doing? Oh, hey, everyone. Hi, welcome to the Monday Ask Mike Anything. You'll notice that something is missing in that picture, and that would be the mic. He bagged out early this morning, so Dave and I are filling in for him. I'm Scott Jernigan, editor-in-chief for Total Seminars and Mike's frequent editor, co-author. And this is my partner in crime,
Dave Rush. I would call your guys' relationship among those titles more like co-conspirators. I'm Dave Rush. I'm the senior instructor at Total Seminars and occasional fill-in with my partner in pie. Oh, wait a minute, we're not doing Pie Day. With my boss in that case today, Scott Jernigan, and we're going to do our best to answer questions. If things slow down, we've got a little bit of a presentation that I've had in a pocket for a while. We started this way back when Mike was traveling. We started talking about the guts and depths of Ethernet, and we built our way along a couple of lessons, and I've got some more if you guys get bored with asking questions, but otherwise, Scott, let me stick something up. Maybe.
So the goal of this AMA is for you to ask us questions and for us to answer those questions. We specialize in IT fundamentals, A+, Net+, Security+. We can go pretty much anywhere, although we want to keep the politics and religion out of it, except for to say one thing if you're here in the US, and that is, if you haven't voted yet, go vote. That's my political statement of the day.
If you would like to get hold of us, we'd like you to ask questions here on the chat feed, of course, and I saw a couple of new names, so this isn't old information for everybody, but we do put this up pretty regularly during these AMAs. Mike's not here. He still wants to hear from you. He loves to get your emails. He loves to research your questions and then put them in his pile to answer the next time he's on. As far as we know, he's on again in 2 days on Wednesday, but you can catch him at Michael M, because he's Michael Meyers at totalsem.com. You can catch myself at Dave R, because I'm Dave Rush at totalsem.com. You want to guess what happens next for Scott Jernigan? That's right, Scott J at totalsem.com. We all game. We're primarily Steamers. So you can find Mike at Senior Pepe. You can find me, Blood Rush TX, or Scott on Steam at Scarheart with no E's in it. All right, and there's a phone number up there that's fun to attempt should you choose to do so. And I guess while we got slides up, let's do this one, Scott.
Okay. This is the AMA special. Just for being here, we have 50% off on all of our A+ and Network Plus super bundles. That's the practice tests and the simulations. And also, oh, wait.
Oh, is this the old one?
That's the old one.
Sorry. I'll build a new one before we're done here. Take a break. You can post the one you have. But the code is right for whatever discount we have.
Right. So the special deal for the day is 50% off on the A+ and Network Plus Total Tester and Total Tester Simulations bundle and the Security Plus Total Tester Practice Tests. So just use the code Thunderbird 2020 at www.totalsim.com and you will get 50% off, which is awesome.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I saw some before the show started conversations with the usual suspects in
Tullowit.
Tullowit, I did the same thing. I messed up daylight savings time. Instead of falling back, I went forward an hour. So I lived extra forward an hour for a day, and then I made up for it today by backing up 2 hours. So.
Yeah, I woke up at 3:30 this morning. I was like, I should get up. And I was like, no, I shouldn't. And then
No.
I went back to bed and fell asleep 4:30, woke up again, and then I had a dream that I had gone back an hour in time and I still had one more hour. It was one of those mornings.
Like it.
Yeah, one of those crazy mornings.
So Andre is apparently they changed times a week before we did. Or he's
Yeah,
just
that's interesting.
they changed the winter time a week later than we are. So okay.
So if you guys have not seen the Dave and Scott show before, I'm watching, I'm looking at the chat on the monitor behind my screen, and then I'm also kind of monitoring the live chat here on the right. And so sometimes we'll be talking and I'll look over to the right and start laughing because one of you guys will have said something really funny, and Dave will just be like, Scott, Scott, Scott. So
At least I
there you
figured
go.
out what it is now. Sometimes I think you're just laughing at me, whatever I'm saying. I start
I,
second guessing myself. Why is
I
he
would never,
laughing?
I would never do that, Dave. Trust me, really.
Well, we did get our first question at 1:48 time mark from
Okay.
Edward Elbakian. Let us know if I'm mispronouncing that, Edward, and I'll get it repronounced correctly for you and put it in the logs for future reference. But you've got a question here that says, guys, chaining many switches or routers in a network is bad. Yes. Is bad? No, unless you do it just because I feel like chaining. So there used to be some rules about how many things you could change together, and they actually kind of still exist. The general rule, stop this, you silencer. The general rule is hosts should not be in a switched environment more than 5 switches apart. And so we try to avoid daisy chaining lots of switches. I know it's off screen, but to do that, what we do is we cascade them. So we'll start with what is called a root switch or a top level switch here. And all of its ports go to second level switches. Their ports go to host, or if that's not possible, they'll go to a bank of third level switches. And that's about as deep as you want to go, because then you've got to go hop, 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 and you're 5 away. So what happens when you run out of ports and you can't do that? Buy bigger switches. They make 5-port switches and 8-port switches and 16s and 32s and 48s. 48's the biggest that I've had personal experience with, but I've certainly seen bigger ones advertised. So no, it's not a bad thing to do if you're not doing it capriciously, if you're not doing it for no reason other than bad planning or you're not sure what you're doing. But look up that, just Google cascade switches and daisy chain switches, and you'll find that. Routers, no big deal. You can chain those as much as you want. You're going to, the more chaining that you have, the greater the impact on latency. And there's going to be a slowdown as we route, unless you've got super powerful, super high speed routers. But functionally speaking, there is effectively no technical limit on how many hops can exist between 2 ends of a routed network. There is some software settings that might impact built into every IP packet that goes out of a device, out of a host, is a number in the IP header called the TTL, the time to live. And every time that packet passes through a router, the TTL gets decremented by 1. So if you've got a system that's sending out packets with a TTL of 16, after it goes through 15 routers, the next thing better be the destination, or that packet's going to evaporate. That's a pretty small number. You don't find 16s anymore. You tend to find 32s and 64s and maybe bigger. But as far as the wiring and the technical side of it, knock yourself out.
Yep. So with the follow-up on that, Tarun at 154 said, how does NTP servers take into account these daylight savings changes? I've heard they're pretty sensitive to a big change. So NTP being, of course, network time protocol.
Yeah, I wish I claimed some expertise on that. I don't have it. I once read how NTP works, and there are apparently built-in compensators that recognize their destination, or if you've got a machine that's got an NTP client and it's contacted an NTP server, it determines hop counts and various other metrics and adjusts for the microsecond and the millisecond level. And so to my understanding, at least here in 2020, that's not a big deal. When I woke up this morning or yesterday morning, my phone said the correct time to the second, as far as I know. I suppose there are those, uber time sensitive things that might be slightly impacted briefly, but I don't have any expertise on that. I'm going to refer you to external research.
Absolutely. So lots of other people are here. Alan Duggan, Andre de Goyert, Elbows here.
Yeah.
Brendan S.
I got another question from Edward. If it's a follow-up, I'm not reading. I just seen the time and I glanced at a couple of words and it looks like a new question. So Edward at 153, I think I misunderstood something in NetPlus in switch port protection episode. You said if we change some switches, it would cause a security disaster, but we see situations alike. Can you explain, please? Yeah, here's the word chain, I think, is the problem here. You can chain things together, no problem at all. If, however, you wind up chaining a secondary link, two possible methods for a frame to get delivered, you've created a loop, and that can be disastrous. Now, as I recall what Mike has said in his lectures, in the video lectures, I don't have the book in front of me, and I'm not going to go look it up. I believe that he has said in one case that one of the protective features is turned off and you have to turn it on, or maybe you got it backward, but I'll just do it this way. Switches normally come with spanning tree protocol and fast spanning tree protocol turned on. And so the disaster is usually already averted. As soon as the system picks up that there's a loop, it will disable one of the ports involved in the loop and you don't have to worry about it. If for some reason you've turned off spanning tree protocol, and there are good reasons to do that, and you have a loop, that may be disastrous unless you turn on some other protocols. So when we talk about chaining here, we're not talking about linking one to another. We're talking about linking a loop between switches somehow.
Right.
Tarun, I got and accepted your invitation. Thank you very much. And for anybody else, I'm building my LinkedIn. So if, I'm not going to stick a thing on here, but if you Google LinkedIn for Dave Rush or David Rush and Total Seminars, you'll find me, and I'm looking to add. So come on in, invite me, and you can expect an acceptance. I'd go look for all of you, but you use cryptic names, not like Dave Rush or John Smith.
Right.
You could probably find Edward, and I could probably find Andre. He actually found me.
So at 2 o'clock, Telewit, of course, Dave thinks he's hot.
Well, duh.
And you for Raymond at 2 o'clock. What have you done with Mike? I've chained him to his desk to work on Security Plus. That's what I've done.
Right. That may be it. He was cryptic about his rationale. We got this message on our back channel. You two take over. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. So at 2:01, Jose Braden's here. Connor Wellman. How are you guys? Debbie Strock.
Hey, why don't you fill in with some Jose info?
So Jose Braden has set up the unofficial Total Seminars channel Discord channel, where we tend to hang out after these shows, and people can ask questions, and it's a little more social, a little less, and a lot more interactive, because we're all there and can talk to each other instead of just us up here pontificating. Let me post the Discord link.
Cool beans.
I'll do it in a moment.
And every time we do this, we pick up Jose picks up another 8-10 people. So looking for another add-on. We get together, we can all camera or voice, or we can just text to each other. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot less formal than this. You can expect to find the Total Seminars crew a little more loose. So we're ready to talk to you in whatever language you want to hear.
Right.
Hey, Falak, good to see you, buddy. And Debbie Strauch. Hey, I've had a ton of fun lately. I kind of mentioned this the other day in our Pi Day, but it's even getting more interesting. I just finished, I'm into May with this indexing, and I'm already done starting mid-July, early July. So I've only got a little bit more indexing to go. But one of the things that I've kind of done is kept track of the first time we encounter a face or a name or a post or a question, and then especially the ones who are still among us. So I was doing one the other day. I ran into Andre de Goyert, who of course is a strong regular here, along with Tullowit and Brendan and Brandon. But I discovered that Andre de Goyert's first appearance where he posted anything was on April 28th. So it's kind of fun to look back through those things. And Batman is a name that we haven't seen in a long time, but he was a strong regular in those early days. And
Yeah.
so Debbie, I haven't run across one. I remember seeing you before April. I'm pretty sure I ran across your name recently.
Tarun Chandra at 201. So you guys are reverse proxy for Mike? It's clever.
We channel him. Hey, Connor. Yeah, right. I've seen you on the Discord. Good to see you. Greetings, Jose. Accomplices. Fair enough. Yeah. So if Scott and Mike are co-conspirators, I guess that makes me an accomplice.
There it is. Most excellent. So at 201, James Burgess has a question. And he says, virtual machines. On a Windows 10 computer, can you have VMs such as Win 10, Win 7, Win XP, Windows Server, and perhaps Mac OS?
Sure. Okay, all the Windows, that's a gimme. Yes, 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 yes. If you have enough power and enough memory, enough CPU cores, you can run all those at the same time, each in a different VM window. Right. Mac, there are people who have done Mac in the past. It is more than an extreme violation of Apple's terms of use. They do not permit, by legal assessment, by legal fiat, their operating system be run on any computer other than an Apple/Macintosh. So if you want to go experiment in those wild realms, more power to you. But I have certainly read that it's done, and we're not recommending you do it or anything else that runs afoul of the law.
And at 203, Falak, I passed Security Plus on Saturday.
Yeah, way to go!
Hey, round of applause. That's great. That's great.
Hey, no more questions from no more questions from Falak. Then you're shut down now, buddy. You start asking the next round of questions, the CYSAs and the CCNAs. We don't know. We've gotten you this far. Now, fly, young fledgling.
Nice.
Yeah. We slid past it just for a quick hi bye. Henry Bruzeau stopped in and said hi. Hope you're still here. And if not, you'll see our response on the archive in a couple hours.
That's right. That's right. Always good to see you.
Yeah, you're not kidding, Andre. I watch the Mike things as I review them, and for him, he always announces his amazement at how much time has flown. And the same thing happens for me just watching them. I got to do a lot of typing and a lot of paying attention, but it's still, oh man, we're at the end. Wonderful.
Yeah. 203, Debbie said, I just started with my Red Hat Linux class at school. Why would I use Linux? And what differences or similarities are there with Cisco?
Okay. You want it?
Sure.
Okay.
Why would I use Linux? Well, one, it's free. 2, it's powerful. 3, it runs on all kinds of hardware. Learning Linux because that has pretty much taken over in the entire server realm. So if you're going to be dabbling in server aspects of the network, then learning Linux is not just a luxury, but a necessity. Certainly A+, Net+, Security Plus assume you have a certain level of familiarity with Linux. Cisco, and by here, I'm assuming you're talking about iOS, not Apple's iOS, but the Cisco iOS, which is the operating system that runs on Cisco routers. And that's a completely different field from Linux. So the commands aren't the same. It's not, it's something that if you are going to be working on routers and on internet service providers and that sort of thing, then learning iOS, again, becomes not just a luxury, but a necessity. So it depends on which direction you want to go with your tech career.
I think you pretty well nailed it. My big key was it runs the internet. So if you're going to have anything to do, operationally speaking, with the net, you want Linux. And I would add one thing to your Cisco presentation, or iOS. iOS is a proprietary Linux. It does share some core features. It uses some of the same commands. You can still pwd and cd and ls and things like that. It just has this master subset of commands that's geared toward configuring and checking aspects of Cisco hardware.
Gotcha. So at 203, Axit, I have to say your total sims are really well done. Bravo. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. A lot of credit to a lot of people for that. Scott writes them and performs them. He gets the ideas for them. He also scouts around and then for ideas from within the rest of the folks within our company. We have a number of other people in-house who idea them and write them and produce them. It's a huge collaborative effort. So thank you for your compliment to everybody involved. Wait till you see Scott's Sec Plus. He has, I don't know, what do you got, 600 of them now?
Leave me alone.
Because it's taking so long.
It is taking a long time. Seems
not
like
anything else to
our
do.
delivery schedule is just sort of blown right out the door on some of these things. So at 204, Patricia Grace says, "Happy November, nerds." So absolutely, it is officially what, the Day of the Dead, I think.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Officially the Day of the Dead celebration
De los Muertos.
in Mexico and the southwestern United States, celebrating the day after All Saints Day. So all good.
Yeah, keep cooking here. I'm up to no good for a second.
Okay, so at 204, Chris Arkwright says, "Hey guys, what's the most difficult problem you've run into in IT, and how did you go about solving it?"
I love that question.
I know, right? So it depends on the most difficult. That's funny. So when I was in grad school and got my first computer, my very first one, I didn't know anything about computers, right? I just knew I had to have a word processing thing to be able to write my papers and do this stuff for grad school. And so I got a secondhand computer, and it was from my wife's office, and it had a whole bunch of stuff on it that I didn't need, right? And of course, hard drive space was incredibly precious back in the day. And so I went through and started deleting things that I wouldn't need. And at one point, I deleted the 2 dots, not knowing what that really meant, except that I deleted the operating system. That was my first real serious, what have I done and how do I fix it? And of course, there was no Google, even if I had a working computer. So it was a matter of going and finding people with a little more experience than me and asking questions and coming up with new operating system files. Still one of my favorite. Oops. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. The one that comes to mind for the most part, it was just kind of this massive cluster full of things. But the problem itself was really kind of interesting. You got to go way back into old history to a world of networking that almost nobody here remembers. One or two have posted issues on it. There used to be this networking protocol before Ethernet called ARCnet. And ARCnet was a system that allowed you to have 255 possible hosts. And it was made unique, not like because it had, or it didn't have a burned in MAC address in the card. There were 8 switches that you had to set. So there are 255 possible combinations, 256 possible combinations of 8 on-off switches. And I had just moved from New Jersey to California. I'd been there, I don't know, less than a month or so, or I don't even remember the timing anymore. I guess it was long after that, now that I think about the rest of the story. And I got a call from Jersey. I was consulting and doing whatever it took to make a living. And they said, it's Sunday morning. I got this call, and we have a crisis. Somebody just installed a new computer, and now the whole network is down. And we're pretty sure it's because somebody made a conflicting ARCnet address. So I jumped on a plane at around 2 o'clock that afternoon, got into Jersey late, and went to the site. And I had to go through and open up every computer and look at every switch setting and document it until I found the conflict, and then set the conflict to one that was non-conflictory and test the network. And it's, I don't know, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning Jersey time before I finally got it done. And it wasn't difficult. It's something that anybody could have done. It was just tedious and time consuming. And
right. So, and that's, from a technical standpoint, that's pretty much the whole concept of troubleshooting, right? Is understanding how the system is supposed to work, right? And then figuring out what could be causing the problem that you're doing, and then going and doing the testing, the documenting and documenting and documenting each step that you make. And that's how eventually you will solve the problem. Yeah. Eventually you get faster at it, right? Because you'll see similar problems in things. You'd be like, it's probably this, I'm going to try this first. But the overall process is that meticulous documenting and understanding how the system is supposed to work holistically. So troubleshooting.
The other part of the job is to provide that documentation for them for future troubleshooting and installation.
Good question.
Yeah. Hey, I forgot about that. At 204, Falak hasn't taken A+ or Net+. He took Sec+ and passed on first attempt.
Which is pretty epic.
Yeah, credit to him and credit to Mike Meyers.
Yep, absolutely. So we are here, Jose, and doing fine. Yeah. And of course, when you were talking about cascading switches, Elbow was just buy a 48-port switch, even if you live alone. You never know.
It's only money. Hey, you know what? I got 6 48-port switches on eBay right now for $75 a piece. So if you're in the States, shameless plug.
There you go.
They're great. They're too loud. It's the only reason I'm selling them, because they got, they belong in racks in a server room that can handle all that fan noise. They're just, the missus was unhappy with it being under the bed.
So at 207, No Bullies says, I'm a total newbie in computers, but not in tech itself. In today's time, everybody's trying to be remote. So if you're having to start over again, what field would you go?
Optometry.
Plumbing.
Optometry's cleaner. Look, you can become an optometrist a hell of a lot faster, than becoming a real doc. You can call yourself doctor, get the bends. You have very little physical contact with patients if you're squeamish, and anything gross, you turn them off to the ophthalmologist. Most definitely. I tried to convince my kid so hard to become an optometrist instead of an engineer.
Wow.
It's a clean job. It's 8 to 5. You don't take your work home with you. I don't know if I career change. I love what I do. I would do exactly what I did. I like the education I have. I like the jobs that I've had. I love the job that I have now. So, and if you're looking for advice, No Bullies, that's my recommendation. Find what you love and do that. And if you're already doing what you love, Keep
Yep.
working on it. Go back to it.
Absolutely. So at 2:09,
Yeah.
Brendan S. says, how do you install virtual hard drive for VirtualBox? Is it a partition on a physical drive replicating a whole virtual drive?
Let me bring one up while you
Talk about the
do a
process.
fairly quick demo on that.
Yeah, so a virtual hard drive is just part of the process when you're installing a virtual machine. The virtual box will say, what kind of hard drive do you want? Do you want to do a kind of the default virtual box hard drive, which is just a file? Okay, it's just a file, and it's a scalable file. So in other words, you might set up a 10 gigabyte hard drive and you're like, I don't want to waste that much space, but it's really not 10 gigabyte. It's simply the container size is set up to expand to that if you need it. So you can set up multiple virtual drives just like this.
Okay, and I wasn't sure. I thought he might have been asking something else, and that was how to set up the artificial CD-ROM that loads. But let me just whip you through something here real quick. I don't want to start. I want to do a new one. So let's make a new virtual machine. We'll do this pretty quickly. I'm not going to explain it all. I'll make it Ubuntu. Notice that I typed Ubuntu UBU, and it automatically said, "Oh, I know what you're going to do. This is going to be a Linux machine." So okay, so Ubuntu HDD demo. Don't confuse it with my other Ubuntus if I have any. So you give it some amount of RAM, a couple gigs. There's a good amount. And we go right then to this hard drive menu. It says we're going to eventually make a virtual hard drive on here, and you get a couple of different choices. It says, do you want to do it now? Do you want to do it later? Do you want to add an existing one? Maybe I made one earlier and my virtual machine crashed, so I wiped out the virtual machine software, reinstalled new, but I left the virtual disk. So we'll make one now. And then here's your three choices. A VDI, this is a proprietary image for VirtualBox disk image. And as Scott said, the reality is on your hard drive, it's a file. And we're going to have a choice in the next menu on how to deal with the size of that file. So I'll hold off on that. What I want you to care about is a VDI is so proprietary that they write tutorials that around, oh, I've got a VMware virtual machine now, and I want to use my old VirtualBox disk image. How can I do that? And these tutorials are 117 steps or some ridiculous amount like that. So the nice thing about VirtualBox is he understands several different kinds of virtual hard drives. And if you want to pick one, later you're going to be using VMware or Hyper-V or something like that, then maybe you want to pick a VHD or a VMDK. But we'll leave it as virtual disk. And then we'll go to this other thing that Scott mentioned, and that is dynamically allocated or fixed size. So you have in your mind a particular size of hard drive that you want this thing to have. And let's make it, I don't know, 100 gigabytes. If you make it fixed size, suddenly 100 gigabytes space of your hard drive is going to be taken away and dedicated to this process. If you dynamically allocate it, that fixed or that size is now the maximum size it can grow to. As far as the actual amount of space that it will occupy on your hard drive is only as much space as it needs to hold the stuff that you put in there. So an Ubuntu installation takes somewhere between 5 and 20 gigs. And that's as big as your file will start out to be. Now you add an application later and it grows a little bigger, and you subtract one a little later and the file size shrinks. And once it gets to it, now what's really cool about it is when you look at it, if you do disk specs on it and things like that, it's always going to look like a 100 gig drive even if you specify dynamic and it's only occupying 5 or 10 gigs or whatever the case may be. All right, I'm not going to do a whole class on virtual machines. Mike has done that. So I'm just going to wipe this out and stop the share. Hope that helps. Ask if you need more.
So at 2:09, Tarun, who asks, I love it when people ask more interesting questions.
Okay.
So 2:09, he says, what's the difference between enabling routing by editing registry settings in Windows and by installing the RRAS role? Which one is more effective? To which I would respond, why make it hard on yourself? Just, and run RRAS, and it does all the registry setting changes in the background. And I mean, you don't have to deal with the actual registry editor. I mean, because you make one little mistake in the registry and you could smoke your machine or have to rebuild. So it's generally better just to use the GUI tools that Microsoft provided for you.
Right. And in the end, the answer to your question is there's no difference. One is you chose to use the registry editor and hopefully follow somebody's good instructions and you don't mess it up. Or the RAS is going to make those same entries that you would have done manually. So they're both just as fast, just as functional in the end. So yeah, I'm with Scott.
Yeah.
Use a tool to make your life easy. What's this Debbie question right before that? He's talking to Bully, but hi, Prof. I recently said to know Python and Linux if you don't know it already. Okay, I'm going to skip that question. I don't understand it. Oh, my prof just recently said to know Python and Linux. Yes.
Yeah. So what do you need to know?
Yeah.
What should I be studying, basically, was the earlier question.
Right. People call us prof all the time. I assume you're just talking about me.
So at 2:09, Falak, is it worth doing IBM Security QRadar SIEM version 7.3.2? I don't know.
Forget it, Falak. Ask us about Sec Plus, A Plus, Net Plus, specific makes and models of some esoteric IBM implementation of SIM.
Yeah, I just
Google's your friend. IBM's your friend.
Yep.
Mike knows everything. Ask Mike. You know what?
Yeah.
If you ask Michael, he'll probably know, but even he's not an IBM guru at this point.
Right. 213, Patricia asks what we use for company email, what client. That sparks phenomenal arguments and fights in total seminars. As you might expect, we all have pretty strong opinions about the technology we use. And then there's Michael. Most of us use Outlook, but Michael hates Outlook and uses Spark.
I don't know what he's using.
Spark, but he's on the Mac anyway, so for the most part.
We're all forced to use Outlook because as a company, we're using whatever the new name for
Office
Microsoft
365
is, Office 365.
Yeah.
I have all of my Outlook mail forwarded to my Yahoo Mail. So if I have to respond with someone at Dave R that's been forwarded, then I'll go in and use Outlook to do that response. But I find it much more convenient to have a web-based one.
So at 214, Eduard, if I have a security camera at home and I configure the router to forward the port to camera, but after some time the router WAN IP address changes, how can I solve that issue?
It's an interesting thing because you really don't have to fix or change anything. Port forwarding is the same. The port forward doesn't know the public let's make sure I'm reading this right. After some time, router WAN IP. Yeah, I've read this right. If your router WAN, I love saying router. I do that.
Router WAN.
IP address changes. Nothing changes as far as what you do in port forwarding. You say in port forwarding that if I receive on the WAN side a request to port 9093 to send that thing to IP address 192.168.1.50, port 80. So all that needs to be known by some outside person is the new WAN IP address. So if it changes, your real challenge is to know when that change happened and what the new address is, so you can configure external utilities that are making this call to call the new WAN address.
Right.
I don't know of any utility that monitors your WAN IP address for change related as DDNS. That, you know, it must surely exist. It's got to pull your current WAN IP address every X amount of time, and when you get no response one day, then you can have it, you know, generate an email to you or something like that. But there's nothing that you need to change inside the router to deal with a change in its WAN IP address when you're forwarding or triggering.
And at 2:15, Cliff Kemp with Indian River State College asks me specifically, will you be having instructor resources with the new Security Plus book? Yes.
That was easy.
Giant truck just went through my neighborhood. But yeah, absolutely. That was because the Mike and I's Security Plus book is not part of the McGraw-Hill textbook line. It's a trade publication that you would buy in like Barnes and Noble. So McGraw-Hill didn't independently develop teaching materials for the book for the last edition. Unbeknownst to me, there was a lot of people going, I want to use this in my classroom because I like Mike's style. Where are the teaching materials? I'm going to have to go with your competitor. So I am specifically writing those instructor resources to go with this edition.
Way to go. Andre, had I been watching silently for about 2 weeks before that? Okay. Reading questions.
Yep, reading through questions.
I'm going to pursue this one. So Andre is recommending to Edward regarding that situation that the solution is to get a static IP address from his ISP. Obviously, it's going to vary by ISP how much that costs. It's not going to be free, I guarantee. We have a situation here at a facility in our neighborhood that I manage where we had to get more than one static IP address for some stuff we've got running in there. You can get one, you can get 5. I don't remember what the next increment is. It might be 13, something like that. There's some math behind it that I could do in a class if I do a quick refresher on it. But so we got 5, and that's costing us an extra about $60 a month from Comcast. We got Comcast there? No, we have AT&T there. We have AT&T. So, but that, you know, hopefully bodes well for only having one static IP. If, you know, if it's that important to you, whatever you're port forwarding to access from the outside, you know, maybe it's worth 10, 15 bucks a month, or depending on where you are, much more.
Absolutely. So 221, Edward asks, which certifications are the best for web app penetration testing? So which certifications for pen testing?
Yeah. What do you got, Scott?
I think CompTIA Pen Test Plus is a great place to start. And then going beyond that into certified ethical hacker would be your next big step. A lot more expensive, but yeah. So CEH would be your end goal in pen testing.
Right. And those would be the two most direct. If you don't have the background before playing in that arena, you probably want to have Network Plus under your belt, or the equivalent knowledge, and probably Security Plus.
That's true.
At a minimum, Net Plus, but possibly, and then those are the two most direct on point ones when you know you've got enough background that they make sense. No bullies. At 223, I'm taking Udemy Network Plus course. I bought a new faster router to replace my AT&T modem, but it seems I can't swap them, but AT&T says I can bridge it. What does that mean? Okay. So your typical AT&T Soho router has a built-in Wi-Fi WAP, and it takes care of an internal IP address and the external IP address all sort of tied together. And that's a problem, because if you go and buy another router, you're going to have to do some heavy magic to make that work. It can actually be done, but what a pain. It's a lot easier to get into that AT&T router. I'll give you some info on that in a second, and pass the WAN IP address through it to the router that you've just purchased. So now you've got regular WAN IP input, and it will do its WAP thing and its NAT thing and whatever. And the good news is we also have this AT&T Soho router, and I've been messing with it a lot in the last year, dealing with this these 5 static addresses, because we also had to do some pass-through work on that and make it a bridge mode. The login account is right there on a handy dandy little sticker, the login information. So you can get in there, and there is a setting that allows you to change it to bridge mode. So that's all you gotta do. Now you're gonna be down for a while you figure this out. If this stuff just kind of on the edge makes sense to you, or Dave has given me words that I can research, don't do it until you've done that research and you're ready to go, because you're going to have some trial and error unless you can get somebody to talk you through it. I don't find AT&T tech support very helpful in that fashion.
So the Day of the Dead jokes have been flowing.
Yep. Tell it begins with Jerry Garcia.
Yep. And Patricia,
Oh,
right?
Way to go, Patricia Grace. Yep.
Without missing a beat. He was grateful for it. Yes. Control Z elbow. There was no Control Z. That would delete your entire operating system.
Yep, not back then. Andre, you wuss, you retracted your message. We always want to see what you have to say. And Andre follows suit. What do you, 2 Andre deletions. Stop it. We must know what you're writing and thinking. We can go back, you know.
So 225, yep. Elbow says, my biggest mistake was compressing the C drive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not your best move.
That's a painful thing that a lot of us have gone through.
Right. And let's let everybody know why that's such a problem, Scott.
Why it's a problem?
Yeah.
It just makes everything slow.
Right, because everything that you access has to be decompressed first before it can run. So all those files that Microsoft references to use to function, all the programs and everything that you run, there's a great time and reason to compress, but not the whole OS and not all your apps. Little used, unusual things, things that in particular are going to save you a lot of space after compression, but just not willy-nilly compress everything.
And I know that just because I was watching it in the live stream, Elbow followed up with, why do you even have that option to compress the C drive? And it stems from the fact that hard drive space was very expensive, and you could save a lot of money by compressing your drives, and something we did back in the day, just to enhance our storage without having to try and buy new hard drives. I mean, the first hard drive was what, 5 megabytes and cost $5,000. I mean, just to put that in perspective, yeah, storage was not cheap.
Yep. Kevin asked a follow-up to that one at 226. Silly question, but is it possible to uncompress it? Yes, it is certainly possible. And it takes a lot longer to uncompress it than it did to compress it.
Yep.
Especially, and this becomes the real problem. Let's say that you had a 100 megabyte hard drive and it was full. So you compressed it and got it to 50 megabytes. Okay, you got 50 megabytes free, you got 50 megabytes compressed. If you uncompress it, that's going to work fine. But if you add another 5 or 10 megabytes into that free space, now there's no room to uncompress it all.
Right. It was a challenge, but that's drive space today is so cheap. Just buy a bigger hard drive.
Right.
You know, or better yet, just buy an SSD.
228. You're for Raymond. You got an earlier one?
I do. At 225, Benham T says, hi, hope you're doing well. What's your suggestion regarding the new graduates that want to find a job in the market? Because many employers want us to have experience, but we don't have it, right? I mean, that's the big catch-22 when you're first starting out in tech. The easiest way that it's so hard today because we're in this COVID crazy place, but the simplest path traditionally is just to go volunteer. You know, go to a neighborhood center, and go to a library, go to your church. And even if it's quote unquote free labor, it's still experience. And you can put it on your resume and say, yeah, okay, I've done this with my, I keep wanting to say bed and breakfast for some reason. The community service of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can still do that. It's a little harder now because we're having to remote in to things, or we're having to follow pretty strict protocols as far as social distancing and cleanliness. But you can still volunteer, and that's the easiest way to gain the experience. And people are very appreciative. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, there's some other avenues as well. Don't forget, of course, you know, it's too late if you've graduated and you're getting this advice now. But you know, most colleges, especially in technical fields and in non-technical fields, either mandate or expect you to participate in some type of internship. So that's where experience starts, and that's going to be your target employer, hopefully, or at least one of them. They know you, you know them, they know what you're studying. So there's that. Working for the university, your college, goes a long way. They have paid and unpaid positions. After you're out and you're on the I need experience treadmill, do stuff. As Scott says, volunteer. Mike hates that idea, but Scott and I are big believers in it. And that volunteerism also comes with helping out family and friends. Okay, they got computers, they have problems, they have things. Do them. You will get experience that may or may not need to go on your resume. But when somebody interviews you and says, what do you know about? Oh, yeah, I've done that before. I had to change out this video card because it was, and here's how I had to troubleshoot it.
Right.
And I had another really, really my favorite one. Oh, well, there's entrepreneurship, open up a shop, join the intern, learn to help out even after you graduate. These little mom and pop shops that fix phones. Many of them are expanding into, I fix laptops, I fix PCs. You walk in the door with A+, and while Mike says certification won't get you a job, that'll certainly get your attention. Oh, I know what the thing was though. You know what Scott and I and Michael and Mike and Tullowit and Andre de Goyert and everybody else does? We pick a topic that we want to learn about. In your instance, something that you think an employer wants you to know. And just start doing it at home. Get a Raspberry Pi, get an old dead computer, get it functioning, and install and troubleshoot a particular area, a topic that you're into. So if you want to learn everything there is to know about routing, go pick up a cheap old Soho router and a computer and start configuring with every setting and experimenting and get to know it inside and out. So that's experience, that qualifies, and that shows passion. These interviewers want to see that. Dr. Evan Upton joined us one time, and somebody asked him, I think it might have been Mike who asked him this question. He said, what's one of your favorite interview questions, or what kind of interview questions do you ask your successful candidates? And Evan said, my first and favorite one is, have you ever written a program that you didn't have to? So he's looking for coders who are so into coding that they're just doing it because they love it. So do things that's your passion.
It's good stuff.
That's a good long Mike answer for a simple question, huh?
Right?
Get a job. That's what I meant to say.
228. You started to do U4 Raymond's question.
Yep.
Have you ever had to deal with a live cyber attack, ransomware, etc., and how did you deal with it?
We get cyber attacked at our website on occasion.
Right.
My web host gets cyber attacked. And I'm happy to say that we don't live in those realms where we have to do anything directly. That tends to live at the level of the web host and things like that. And they fix these kinds of problems. And then that one being probably the most common one out there, a DDoS attack, is they will hire or install or configure Cloudflare to intercept all requests that go to the attack site, the attack surface. And then Cloudflare says, look, I can handle this. I'm not overwhelmed because this is all I live to do. And I'll figure out which ones are the bad ones and reject them, and which ones are the good ones and pass them through. And sooner or later, the attacker gets bored or shut off their bot and goes and picks on another host, and they fix that. The only kind of attack I ever experienced that was just weeks to deal with, the missus got a virus on her computer that fortunately wasn't destructive, but it put the hidden attribute on every single file in her system.
That was a great one.
Oh man,
that was a great one.
I thought there'd be a really easy solution. I thought it'd be a trib -h/s from the root, but that doesn't work when file systems are so large. Fortunately, I found somebody who'd also been similarly attacked, or some buddies, and they had collectively written a fix that goes through one by one and finds and fixes all those files. Its downside is it took files that are normally hidden and unhid them. Yeah, could be worse.
Yeah. Back when I was, I guess back in the sneakernet days, I was tech support for the history department, unofficial tech support for the history department at my university when I was in grad school. And the internet was young and people lacked skills. And so viruses were very common on campus. My favorite one was walking around with a floppy disk with an antivirus program on it, right? Inserting it into the professor's computer, running the fix, all beautiful. Okay, let me do one more final scan here after rebooting, and it had another virus. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I just fixed this. How could it have another virus? So I went through this loop like 3 or 4 times until I realized that my antivirus diskette had a virus.
Wow.
I was like literally infecting the computers. I was fixing them. Live and learn, man.
Up to 233. Firmware
Okay.
is more EEPROM than ROM. Double EEPROM.
Yeah,
EEPROM
EE.
Good. Oh, you're still working on those texture files. That's cool.
No, he accidentally like dumped 350. He did a Control A and dumped them into a program.
Yeah. Yeah. If you Control Z that right away, it comes back, but otherwise.
Otherwise, you just wait, which is what you've been doing.
5% completion.
So at 236, No Bullies asks a follow-up question, a little more clarifying. What field would you learn today if you were starting out?
I don't have a different answer. The field that I love. I'll give you an answer, but it won't be your answer. So I love physics. I love electrical engineering, and that leads to this. So I don't, you got to find what you like.
And I love history and politics.
Yeah.
That leads to computers.
So well.
Come on.
I super scrolled. Stand by. There we go. I'm back.
All right. At 236, Brendan also had a follow-up question on on VirtualBox. How do you add virtual hard drives to an existing VM?
Here, go ahead. I'll bring that back up and I'll point that out.
So again, it's very menu driven. You simply go in and add a hard drive in the virtual box menu, right? You say, I want to add this these extra hard drives because you want to be able to play with RAID and that kind of thing. But it's pretty straightforward process.
Most of the things that you do in VirtualBox have to be done while VirtualBox is shut down, while your virtual machine is shut down. But that's not a 100% true statement. And you can always do it while shut down. So here I've got a virtual machine. It's all configured. If I take a look at the settings, I've already got settings. There we go. So we'll go into the storage menu here, and we can add storage devices. So I can click add an optical drive. I can click add a hard drive on this IDE controller, or let's highlight this guy and let's add a hard drive. And we would create a new one. I don't want to mess this thing up, but it's menu driven. You create this new one and it'll ask you the same types of questions that we got asked during an initial install. So there's no real trick to it. Just dig around with the menus of this thing. This is a great thing if you want to, as a tech or as a prospective employee someplace, get to know VirtualBox really well, or get to know Hyper-V really well, or VMware. Okay, I'm out of there. Good.
So Kevin asks another VM question at 237. Does the VM appear as a new device with its own IP address in your router, or does it somehow share the host IP?
I don't think I understand the question when you say in your router. What devices appear in your router, Kevin? So if you set up a virtual machine.
I think he means LAN.
You think he means LAN?
Yeah. In other words, does the VM appear as if it is a standalone computer?
Right.
Does it get its own IP address? And so the answer is yes.
The answer is maybe. It depends on how you configure the network. If you make it bridge mode, then it becomes another host on your network.
Right.
If you configure NAT mode, then it's not going to appear to the network. You just have to know it's there, and you access it through your computer. I like to play with spanning partitions and stuff within that VM, but I wonder if you can create 2 or 3 logical drives within that VBOS. Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Scott, go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that just click the little thing that says, make another hard drive, and you just make another one.
Yeah.
And you treat them, when you say logical drives, once you install Windows in there and you have 4 or 5 virtual hard drives in that virtual machine, disk management is going to treat them as if they're real hard drives.
Right.
So you just go in and do disk management, do all of your spanning and RAID and all kinds of stuff. This is how we play with this stuff safely.
Right. So even if you just have a single hard drive, you go into the disk management utility and shrink that partition down to whatever is occupying it, and then you've got all that free space to play with. You can do more virtual, not more virtual drives, more partitions. You can span partitions across that single drive. Yeah, it's totally flexible. You can't do hardware RAID in VirtualBox. So we've looked that up before. There is no virtualized RAID controller, but you can do storage solutions. Is that the right name for it? I always call it the wrong thing. Storage something or other, the Microsoft. Storage spaces. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think my answer is better. I'm going to call Microsoft.
At 240, Chris mentions, just an FYI, don't use Mac OS to take the at-home Pearson VUE exams. Doesn't play well with the performance-based questions. Okay.
Yeah, it's my understanding that you have to use a Win 10 machine, but I may be wrong about that. That came up last week, and somebody looked it up.
I don't recall.
Whatever. Hi, Patricia Grace. With a Microsoft 365 subscription at time 240 and a domain email, You have to connect domain in Microsoft 365 settings, right? No, because I run Microsoft 365 from our corporate environment from here natively. And when I'm at the office, there is no mandatory domain connection that I'm aware of.
Right.
It just knows you by email address. So I don't think so, but I'm no guru there.
So at 2:41, Andrew Hutz popped in. Long time no see. In fact, we were just talking about you on Friday.
Yeah.
Seriously, Andrew, we were just talking about you on Friday because we hadn't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
So there you go. Welcome back.
And that's why I was asking about email, just throwing it out there for anybody using Microsoft 365 and Outlook with your company domain. So she's saying, if you have a domain, if you just add your domain to email Outlook, you're not going to get all functions you pay for. I don't know. You've moved beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Outlook, the Outlook client, whether it's on a domain or local, whatever, it's just tied to your email address.
241 from Edward, a question for you.
When is the SY0601 Security Plus course going to be published? So by course, that's a pretty loaded question. Mike and I are writing the third edition of our Security Plus book that's due to publish towards the end of the year. After we get through the first writes, and Mike and I have a kind of a tag team process as far as writing goes. We'll get through the first writes, and then he pretty much falls away at that point. And I'm the one that follows up and does the technical edit in corps and do the copy edits and the page proofs. And this is the process of building a book. Once he finishes the first write, then we'll schedule him to start filming. That'll take him probably about 2 weeks to film the new course. And then our video production team will be producing that afterwards, which takes another month or so. So sometime early, late winter is what I would guess.
Yeah, it all comes down to when we can get back in the studios too.
Yeah, that's true too. That is true too. And Elbow at 243.
I want this one.
Which brand of CPUs do you like to install more?
Yeah, so that's why I like the question. I'm taking that question literally. And the answer to that one is, well, it'd be easy to say, an install is an install. Do I like this one better? Do I like that one better? But Intel's, their cooling solution has this snap-in assembly that you have to click in 4 holes around the perimeter and lock in place. And if you only ever have to do that once or twice to that computer, man, that is just satisfying. You get it all lined up, you get it straightened up, you don't have enough goo glorping out of it, and you push, and it goes snap, and you can feel it and hear it secure. And the same goes on the other 3. That's wonderful. Doing this on the AMD, it's got a band and it's got a lever and you hold it down a little bit and yeah, okay, that's cool, but it's not nearly as satisfying. The problem with that darned Intel solution, especially for us, I like Intels, Scott and Mike like Ryzen, so okay. So if the question is which you like better to use, that's the answer to that. But we take classes on the road. Sometimes we teach 3-letter federal agencies with people that carry guns, and sometimes we teach in school districts and whatever. And we bring on a pile of motherboards and a pile of CPUs and a pile of everything else. And we teach this stuff, how to assemble motherboards and how to troubleshoot them. And the motherboards just can't handle the continuous reinstallation of those CPUs. The cooling locking pins break, the motherboards crackle and break. And so if you're constantly updating, reusing, or using them in an educational environment, got to go AMD. That hurts me so much to sit in class and everybody said, these are great CPUs and look how easy and fun they are to.
Yeah. Or we spend a lot of money on aftermarket fans if we want to use the Intel.
Yep. Yeah, well, I had one snap on my Intel-based Mobo here about a year ago.
Yeah.
One of the cooling solutions, and I tried tape and all kinds of goodies, and in the end, I said, okay, forget it. I'm going to put in my super big, ultra cooling solution that I bought in case I ever needed it. Okay, I needed it.
There you go.
How about looking at that percentage growth? It looks like you're going to finish before the class is done. Intel CPUs feel like something's going wrong until it's all the way installed. Yeah, until it snaps in, you got to keep wondering, am I pressing too hard? Is it connected? Ah.
So yeah, 245 Kevin Lopez says this refers back to the pen testing question, right? That's why he's using primarily Kali Linux, which is a Linux distribution that is designed from the ground up as a pen testing tool. So that is the one that we use, most definitely. And Elbow's N key is sticky. I'm just going to leave it right there.
Yeah, there was plenty of follow-up for it. Big shock. It came from Tulowit.
Yeah, right? Imagine that. And yeah, Elbow, I know. Bed and breakfast volunteer would not look good on a resume, okay? I just said I had it in my head, not that that was the right thing. And Tulowit, I'll let you go with the one religious joke of the day.
Yep, you know our rule here. 248 Elbow, I had an error on boot in BIOS that said boot mugger is compressed. Okay.
It's true. Right?
Yeah, whenever you compress, gosh, any of that bootable stuff, you have to recover it manually. You got to copy it from the install cabinets because it won't boot, so you can get to the decompression utility. What would you guys, okay, you got that. Reading questions, passing.
Yeah, so 254, Kevin makes the comment that he's heard nightmare stories about PC game console repair. Yeah, those stories are real. That roach infestations, cat hair, gnarly if you have people that smoke in their house and you've got a film of stuff inside the computer. Oh, man. Yeah. PC repair is not a clean job.
Yep.
It is not a clean job. It really isn't.
There's only one clean job, optometrist.
There you go.
Company where my family works at, says Elbow at 256. Got hit hard with a ransomware attack. Ransom was only 500, but it was sketchy. They weren't sure if it was paying to receive it. Yeah, there are plenty of stories out there who've been hacked and paid Bitcoin ransoms and never got what they paid for. And so what's the solution? Back it up before these things happen.
Right.
Reading question.
Absolutely.
Have you heard of the duck virus? I have not. It creates little ducks that you can see walk around your screen. Okay. I have heard similar viruses. I'm not duck. Super scrolled.
Elaine Batzer is here.
I'm scrolling back up.
Yep. Elaine Batzer came in at right around 3 o'clock. Hi, Elaine. Good to see you.
Elaine.
Been a while. Normally, of course, you'd see Mike up here, but he bagged out this morning. So Dave and I are filling in for him.
Yeah, in fact, let's do a commercial break, Scott. I got the, okay, let's do a commercial break. I got the right slide up.
Okay.
And we'll re-put up some contact info. All right, so for new faces who've turned up since we started the show, Mike was unavailable today. He asked us to fill in, so we're doing exactly that. Today is no focus on anything as far as the presentation go. We're just answering your questions. He still wants to hear from you. We want to hear from you. So if you don't get your question answered from the thread, or if you didn't post it, send us an email. Michael M at totalsem.com for Mike, Dave R at totalsem.com for me, and Scott J at totalsem.com for Scott. I need to figure that out. And this is the correct deal of the week. So for those of you who are kind enough to join us on this and the other AMA on Mike's AMA on Wednesday and our Pi Day on Friday, this is good all week long. We got 50% all A+ and Net Plus Total Tester and Total Tester Sims bundles and Sec Plus Total Tester. And soon, I'm sure that will include Sec Plus Total Tester and Sims bundle. They're already really low priced. 50% off makes them unbelievably cheap. Put in the code Thunderbird. Ooh, that says Thunderbird 2020. Sorry, that's a typo. It's Thunderbird 20. Thunderbird 20 is the code. I'll get that fixed before the end of the show.
No, it's Thunderbird 2020.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's literally
2020.
And yes, we made all kinds of Mad Dog 2020 jokes, everything else. Like, I have no idea where Kathy comes up with some of these things.
Yeah, Tollywood didn't have to beat us to it.
Right?
So wonderful to see Elaine. We had a question the other day, Elaine, that we had to research your episode or find your episode to answer that, because all the information that the answer contained was provided by you. So thanks again. It's good to always see you again.
Tollywood responding in real time.
Yeah. The engineer asked what I missed today. Okay, so we've been on for an hour and 15 minutes. We got to redo the last hour and 15 minutes and fill in engineered. Just new computer giver. Yeah, I know, that was an awesome computer. I've never personally owned a computer that supported 128 gigs of RAM and already had it installed. I thought we should get to play with it first, but no, it went to, who got that elbow? Somebody.
All right, so Elaine says she's got questions. So
Oh my
here
God.
we go.
Well, you know her better than me, so you answer them.
So 301, she says, we're doing VirtualBox and Shop now because local employers have been clamoring for it. Clamoring, I say.
Oh, man.
No question, though. At 302, Sean McLaughlin says, I often seem to have trouble connecting to the internet with VirtualBox VMs. I have Ethernet cable, and usually it works automatically with my regular computer. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, real simple. Either configure your network mode on the first network interface card to be either bridge mode or NAT mode. I'm going to guess that 90 times out of 100, that's going to solve your problem. Use DHCP as well in both circumstances. Other possible problems, you could be using a static address there that conflicts with whatever you've got going on beyond the VirtualBox. So take a look at that, but I'm going to guess 90% chance it's your networking configuration.
So 303, Elaine says, with VirtualBox, that the virtual drives can eat up real disk space. And that's true if you set them up to be real disk space eating drives.
Right, static.
But as Dave showed a little earlier in the stream, make them, what was the official?
Dynamic.
Dynamic, just make them dynamic. And then they're a tiny little file that gradually gets bigger as you use it. So you can end up making lots and lots of drives and playing with them.
303, Kevin, router admin GUI shows every device that's connect to the internet. So I was wondering if a VM would pop up in there. Yeah, if you set it up bridge mode, it should appear in there in the same way, because it just looks like another computer to the router. It'll have its own normal address that's the same kind of address as everybody else on your network. Andre DeGoyert is in agreement with me. Maury Lane, okay, that's it. So we went backward from yours. Xerxes is back. Why do they still use the term RAID? Why not call them what they are? What are they, other than RAID arrays? What would you call them, Xerxes?
Yeah, I don't know. I call RAID arrays RAID arrays.
Yeah, because they're RAID arrays.
So Tolowit made a comment at 305, and this was in reference, I think, to Andrew?
Andre?
No. whoever made the comment, Christopher, made the comment about not recommending using Mac OS.
Oh, okay.
And Telewood says, I think it'd be more of a browser choice issue than an OS choice for online testing. We will have to look that up because I don't know that.
Yeah, none of us have ever online tested, but I don't understand it to be a browser system. My understanding of it is it sends down an app and you run that. But I don't know. I haven't taken it online.
Okay.
The corporate Microsoft Word and other programs required my work email and password to function. Yeah, okay, that can happen if your corporate administrator sets it up that way that they're going to control it, then you have to use the email addresses that they specify. I accidentally clicked yes to that option the other day. Now Michael Smyer controls my email world. He's left me alone so far, but I know one day something's going to happen.
One day.
Yep. 306, Elaine. 3 A+ topics. We are studying hard drive diagnostics. In real life, when, where, why would you want to run these? Soho OneDrive failing. Enterprise setting. I struggle to explain the students. I'm getting a little confused with the wordage starting with Soho OneDrive failing.
So when would I use hard drive diagnostic tools in real life? Usually it's when something is going weird and you're like, okay, is it the drive or is it a configuration or is it, I mean, just a way of figuring out whether it's a physical issue or whether it's some other, like a software issue. And so running hard drive diagnostic is perfectly acceptable way to figure that out. Your follow-up question that I noticed that will come up at 3:20, so just posted it, is when would you use smart?
Good,
And that
I was going to key on here on this first question.
Yeah. If you're like me and you never reboot your computer, you'll never use it. If you're like most people and it's on by default, then if your hard drive is failing, it will pop up and say, hey, your hard drive is failing.
Actually, no. Smart is totally passive. You have to read it with a smart reader, and that's why people don't use it. It's very unfortunate. And I was just thinking about that based on her 306 question. If we were smart and proactive, we would get, I use Western Digital Smart Reader. And unlike everybody else, I run it when I think I have a problem or when I do have a problem. But if we were truly smart about using smart, we would put that in the task scheduler to run maybe once a month, first of the month or something like that.
That's interesting. I guess because I have had motherboards that instituted a smart check.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, on boot and seen failed drives.
Yeah. I have seen failed drives on boot, but not because smart detected it, because it failed and BIOS said, hey, I can't help you here. You're in trouble. But my problem, of course, is my newest motherboard is from 2004. So.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but Elaine, I think that's probably an opportunity for you to do a little evangelism and say, you've got two choices. One, use it when it's too late or just about as it's too late, or use it proactively and check it out and make running baselines and compare over time. We'll never do it. Wrong color. It's not screwdriver. This is dark tan. It's apple cider. Love apple cider in the fall. Are you kidding? 308 Kevin Lopez. Will there be a new social engineering zone episode? I hate when somebody messes with perfection. There are some movies that should never be remade, and that episode should never be remade. Pins on Telluride. Yeah, pins on CPUs, Telluride. I've bet way too many. I don't miss that at all.
Huh. Okay.
Okay.
Telluride just asked me to jump on a Pearson VUE website that is in kanji. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'd post the link, but
Fortunately, you read kanji, so it's going to work out.
there you go.
No, I did not talk about Raspberry Pi 400. Nah, it's a big deal. It's a Ras Pi that's built into a keyboard. I find nothing. It just grabs me about that. All my Ras Pis I manage remotely. I don't use keyboard on them except for the initial setup. So, nah, don't care. And it's not Pi Day, so I doubly don't care. Hey, by the way, those of you who are going to join us for Pi Day on Friday, which will be Pi Day Friday, if you want to follow along, this is going to be so cool. Just have a basic setup. We're not doing any hardware, and all the software you need is already in the Pi. So if you've got something already installed on it, that's okay too. There's nothing that's going to conflict. We're going to be experimenting with SenseHat. SenseHat, if you go out and buy one retail new, it's 40 bucks. Saw some on eBay today for 30 bucks. But the cool thing about SenseHat is it's got an emulator already built into Raspberry Pi OS, which we're going to call RPi OS from now on. Save 14 syllables. And so we can learn everything there is to know about SenseHat without actually going to buy one and install it. And then when you do decide to go make the purchase, you've already got files made and you got the knowledge down, and it's going to be cool. So I don't remember what I haven't titled the episode yet. I came up with something like Meet SenseHat or something like that. And Telluride, don't spell meat with M-E-A-T. I feel it coming. Yeah, Andre, putting in an Intel cooler always sounds like it's breaking. And sometimes there is some crunchy, cracky sounds coming from the motherboard, even when you're doing it right. Terrifies me. There you go. Nothing squeezes out. No, you can put too much, believe me. In all these zillions of classes that I've done where we have people install CPUs, there have been plenty of occasions where people have put too much thermal paste on there and it oozes and it goops. And sometimes we can clean it up. Sometimes it goes back in the bucket and we pull one of the 2 or 3 spares that we brag along with us. And then we work on cleaning it up when we get back to the office. No, there is such a thing as too much and there's such a thing as too little. And it's an experiential thing to come up with the right amount.
Right. I mean, a thin film, a very thin film, because all you're trying to do is just compensate for the little tiny variations in the metal. That's all. Yeah. That's all you're trying to do.
If you take a close-up look with a microscope at the surface of the lid of the CPU and at the base of the metal thing on the heat sink, thank you, it looks like mountainous terrain. And so when they sit on top of each other, you only get kind of contact points. So we wanted a little bit of goop in there to fill those contact points in.
Yeah, my favorite class of goop stuff is one of my students put the thermal paste on the socket.
Yep.
And then put the CPU in. Yeah, like, I don't understand why it's not coming up. And it's like, I would call it one dead motherboard at that point.
A312 WebDev is here, and I saw WebDev check in earlier. I was going to say hi, but now I can say hi. I'm still trying to understand how a switch knows MAC address of connected device. I got a presentation, but we got more questions than we got time for presentations, so I'm just going to do a short answer here. Okay. Remember that when a computer, a host, sends out a frame, at the beginning of that frame are 2 fields. In fact, here, I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring up one slide. I got that ready to go. Oh, that's beautiful. It's truly ready. Okay, so we're looking at a frame here. It's moving toward the left to right. And the first field of a frame is the destination receiver's MAC address, hey ABC, and it's followed by the sender's MAC address. This is 1, 2, 3. So when that goes into a switch, the switch is looking at that header to learn the MAC address of the sender, and he says, oh, okay, the MAC address of this sender is 1, 2, 3, and it came into port number 41. So he fills out a table that says MAC address 1, 2, 3 is connected through to somehow physical port 41. And so every time a frame goes into a switch, the switch looks at that part of the frame and checks the sender's MAC address, and then either updates the table if there's been a change, or just checks the table and says, is that what I know? Yep, that matches what I know. Move along. Does that make sense? Ask me another question if it doesn't.
So 315.
ARP. Good, you skipped ARP. I didn't.
At 315, it's a good question. U4 Raymond asked, is it safe to purposely infect a VM with malware for R&D?
To my understanding, that's how malware researchers do it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, how else are you going to learn?
Yeah.
Right? How to deal with it.
The only other way is to make a legitimate, seriously 100% isolated machine that's
Right.
physical. So may as well do it in a VM. To my knowledge, there have not been leaks outside the VM. Somebody's got one somewhere, but. Kevin, I already purchased an A+, Net+, and Sec+ Total Tester Sims, not knowing that my access will expire in a year. I guess this is motivation to get it done. Absolutely. You know the heat and pressure line.
Yep. Just looking for questions here.
Yeah.
I'm at 321.
Okay, you're about 3 minutes ahead of me. I'll catch up to you.
Okay.
Oh, there's only 2 questions.
Oh, so Xerxes at 320 said mirrored drive striped with parity, etc., instead of RAID 0 through 5. You say potato, I say potato.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing, really.
Right. I'm going to get a car. I'm going to get a Ford Focus.
Right.
So mirrored is a subset of RAID. Ford Focus is a piece of crap. I mean, is a subset of.
Wow.
Actually, I don't know. I know nothing about a Focus. That's not true. I have been told they're better, but back in my many traveling days before this nonsense, I rented a lot of them, and they had some really awful transmissions. All right.
So 321, Connor has another VM question. Like, in VirtualBox, will setting a virtual machine to fixed allocated as opposed to dynamically allocated make the VM perform faster?
I doubt it, but I can't say that I've ever compared them.
So if your VMs are performing
or follow-up comment.
If your VMs are performing slowly, you might not be giving them enough RAM.
Yeah.
And if your system itself doesn't have a lot of RAM, then you simply can't allocate enough RAM to them. So that's going to be the main performance hit, I would suspect.
Yeah, that and core power.
Yeah.
David's gotten the latest Raspberry Pi and still uses steam-powered motherboards. Okay, so I may or may not have been honest about my 2004 motherboard.
Really?
My computers run 24/7. My hard drive, my one hard drive that failed, and it made noise, and I couldn't figure out. Let me stop there. Hard drive, noise, stop, and don't turn it off. Back it up. Get the critical data off now. It's going to die. Hard drives make one noise, and it's
That's right. And SSDs don't make any noise at all.
That's right. Never got any warning pop-ups. Right. Sometimes failures in hard drives are utterly catastrophic. I have a failed hard drive in my gaming rig that has actually had it down for months. I have to send it into a pro. It catastrophically failed, and the computer won't boot without it, because the way I have it configured, it's got a mount point that's part and parcel of the operating system. I was experimenting with it and I never changed it, and now I am regretting it and won't do that again. But I haven't booted this computer in months. Hello, everyone. Mr. Meyers is out again. Oh, it's not again. It's just occasional. I was really hoping he was going to be here today because I wanted to hear his commencement at Perscolis story.
Yeah, we still don't know.
Yeah.
Because he never popped onto Discord.
Yeah.
Afterwards, even though I pinged him.
Okay, Tulowitz says he sent you an email. PCs and Mac gives list of browsers. Okay.
Yeah, so I posted. Tulowitz sent a list from Pearson VUE specifically for the OnView settings and supported browsers and all that sort of stuff. So I eventually managed to get that link up there. It's in the chat.
Oh, okay. 326 web dev. Is it important to memorize TIA 568A and TIA 568B colors for the A plus test? Only if you want to pass the test.
You will get that question.
You will absolutely get that question.
You get that question. So it's kind of one of those, might as well know it and not miss one.
Yep. Mike, in his lecture. Yeah. Okay, so don't ever watch the one that he did here on AMA. That one had a problem with it that got carried on to the entire thing. But in his video lecture that we sell, and it's on Udemy and things like that, he has the only way to memorize the color scheme that I was ever able actually to use and memorize. I don't have it memorized now because I look it up if I need to do it, but if I'm going to go take a test and see what's going on CompTIA test right now, I can't stand not passing. Our boss, Dudley, periodically wants me and some of the other guys to go take the test just to get a feel for the kind of stuff they're asking. And it says, fail it, because if you pass it, you can't take it again for a certain amount of time. And he may want us to take it again in short order. I can't do that. It's the one disagreement I may have ever had with my boss that says, no, I won't go in and purposely fail. I might fail.
I mean, all these exams, you have to know the dynamic in the office. The points we score on the exams, those are the bragging rights.
Yeah.
Right? It's the serious competition between who's going to get high score. I don't always win.
Wayne says to you regarding thermal paste on the socket, I've had a kid do that, and it was so hard not to say you moron. I had a guy in one of our classes one time, one of the Fed classes, who was just careless, and he'd worn a white button-down shirt that day and got some of that silver paste on him. There's no hope. That suddenly becomes your mechanic's shirt.
Yep, because that stuff doesn't come out.
Yeah. Let's see. Kevin is talking to Connor. I just super scrolled. Oh, I'm back. Oh, we're getting toward the end. We're going to catch
we're
up.
almost at the end.
Yeah.
And I posted the YouTube video of the Verge. Basically, it's how to build a PC.
Yep.
They have a very long article if you search on theverge.com for how to build it. But then specifically for applying thermal paste, and I have remembered seeing this. So yeah, it's a very good, a good video.
Excellent. And WebDev followed up your post right away that says we've answered his question, so we're good to go.
Yep.
Wade Wellman. Welcome, Wade. You may have been here before, but I don't recall the name. So, but I also have the memory of a gnat.
I just scrolled.
Some people can't remember what they had for breakfast. I can't remember where I had breakfast.
So 331, Wade says last used MS-DOS in the world of 8088, which was my story, by the way, was an 8088, was my first PC that I deleted MS-DOS. Mac user ever since. what Windows 10 computer manufacturer would you recommend? Desktop or laptop?
Yeah.
That's the first question. I build my own desktop computers because I'm a geek and I like it.
You got a favorite manufacturer for motherboard when you do that?
I pretty much rely on Asus at this point. They're lots good bang for the buck and sterling reputation. But as far as an actual manufacturer, I've had good luck with Lenovo and Samsung tablets. Laptops, I mean.
Yeah, it scared me there.
I just have a thing against HP and Sony and Toshiba.
Oh, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I don't like the choices they make on some of the things they stint on. If you're going to get a Dell, you can get a great machine. Just make sure you configure it the way you need it, and always add more RAM than you think you're going to need. That's the key. Just whatever you can afford, obviously, would be the important part. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. If a friend or a relative says to me, what motherboard, if they want the learning experience, I'll build one with them and use an Asus motherboard if we're talking about a desktop or tower. If they don't want to go through that, then I figure you can't go wrong with a Dell. They have so many choices and so many possible configurations. So that's probably the big trick. You say configure it the way you want. And I assume you mean by order the configuration you want, not set up the
Right.
windows, things like that. Yeah. So know what you want, know what features you've got. Elbow, you'll be back. What, are you going to eat lunch or something? Man, we've only got 20 minutes left.
He says, I'd be back.
Even better. I see aisle. I'm
Right.
a future guy. Okay, lots of shorties here. The import is done. Huzzah.
We are just about right at the end of questions.
I'm loving this. That's all right. We got things we can talk about. If you got questions, we got 20 more minutes to kill and not too many left to answer. We'll go back and re-answer some of the old ones with different answers. Andre de Goyert says to web dev, it's not hard to remember. Do you have a technique that you like to use to help remember, or are you just one of those types who's good enough to know orange, white, green, whatever? Because I can't do that. I might have been able to do many years ago.
Yeah, I have my latest laptop is a Surface Book. And it does have a dedicated GPU as well as the Intel one.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's a sweet machine, but wildly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's in like crazy over the top expensive. But it's my work machine, not my personal machine. I'm extravagant, but on other things. So
which means he games on it in the evening.
You're not wrong.
Oh, that 568 was not the lost episode. That one's gone forever. I know the 568 AB episode is still in existence. Sorry, I remember that one vividly because he did this great presentation, and then 3/4 of the way through it, there was a head slap that somebody pointed out. He had one of the colors reversed, and then we had to stop everything and go research it. He didn't believe what we were telling him or what he was seeing on the YouTube, and then he did the big mea culpa. Oh well, forget all this. Here's the right colors.
Yep. And Andre says blue always in the middle, brown always on the right.
Okay. Yep. I did. That's the one everybody can remember because that's true for A and B.
Yep.
I always like the question. I get this a lot on Udemy. Same question, first of all, as web dev. Do I have to memorize this? Yes, that's why we present it. And then why would you use one over the other, and why does two versions exist? And I had to do some real heavy research actually on that. I remember when A came out, and I know why it existed. The reasons that they switched to B are a little arcane, but and I'm not going to get into that here. It's just not worth it. But why they both exist is a common question. So I want to hit that one ever so quickly.
Yeah.
It's for backward compatibility. That's the only good reason. A works fine. B works fine. But if you're a technician and you walk into a shop and they installed their Ethernet networking 15 years ago, now they probably got the wrong cat cable in there too, but their old switches or their old punch down blocks and things like that, they're going to be marked for A. And unless you got hired to pull all their stuff out and rewire it all for B, you got to add anything new to use the A wiring scheme. Not a good reason.
I mean, the whole reason we had two different wiring schemes was to be able to connect hubs together. Yep. I mean, way back in the day, right? Because you use a crossover cable to extend your collision domain. And that was the way you did it. Or you use that crossover cable to connect directly from computer to computer. Yep. So that was the whole reasoning behind it. Nowadays, just pick one standard and go with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, still, if you're doing host to host, you still need a crossover cable. They don't have auto MDI or MDIX.
With gigabit. With gigabit, they do.
Nope. Prove that to yourself sometime. Take two of your computers side by side and try a straight through cable. They won't talk. The switch does auto MDIX.
Right.
But the NIC doesn't in a computer or host.
All right, Smackdown. I'm going to do it.
I'll put money on that one. I remember that one, says Tullowit. The first time there was a contest country. Yeah, okay. I knew some of the old timers would remember that one. God, did we apply that to a contest?
Yeah, Mike was like, okay, and pick the standard.
Yeah, you're right.
I was typing in the background going, your slide is wrong. Your slide is wrong. And doing a contest. Mike. Yeah. Well, I'm all the way up to 345 at this point.
Okay, I'm at 339. So if you got anything, go ahead. I'm just reading.
Tullowit thinks I should compose a folk song to help memorize the colors of the wires.
A simple jingle.
342. I skipped over one here. Okay. U4 Raymond says, with more services going cloud, do you think all hands on tech will only be in the data centers?
Nah.
I say nah.
People buy tablets, people buy phones. If computers ever go away, first of all, it's going to be a long time. The world's used to them. And we have this discussion and this argument all the time in-house. One of our vaccine super geniuses is just sure that people don't use computers like Scott and I are sitting in front of right now. They do everything on tablets. And I think there's a certain validity to that in some circumstances. Students tend to live and die on tablets, but production employees and people who word process and things like that, and engineers, we sit in front of computers and we use them. And it's going to be, in my opinion, that way for a long time. But even if and when that goes away, the world needs technicians for whatever human interface device we use, be it tablets or phones or whatever. And A+, is morphing to add more questions and technologies and techniques for us to know about those things. And maybe someday the whole thing morphs and we've never heard of a laptop or a desktop or a notebook anymore, but we're now all focused on notebooks or on tablets. So no, there's going to be techs. There's always techs. There's dishwasher techs.
The quality of the light on the camera is changing on the surface. And nothing is changing on my end, but I know I can see the color shift.
Right.
I just added my Christmas.
Now you've turned pink. You're pretty regular there. I never know if that's something that's because of what's passing in front of your window or what.
Yeah. My disco ball. Yeah, that's it.
I have them. You're welcome to borrow one.
So, okay, here's a serious question,
Yeah,
right? At
easy one.
344, Web Dev Bootcamp. I was talking to a cybersecurity analyst about how I could get into the field, and she told me to go and find out what happens after I send an email. So the question is, what happens after I click send?
Okay, I would be curious to know what background education you have in tech right now, because we could get real deep and nasty into this, or we can get light. But are we going to talk about the network layer protocol and how we get the thing out of your computer and through a router? And oops, we had to stop first and either do a DNS search to find the IP address of your SMTP server. And so that's the first thing. Your computer, whatever you're using to send email, knows either the DNS name or the IP address of a simple mail transfer protocol server, an SMTP server. What port, everybody? I want to see numbers coming up on the chat right now for what SMTP port number is. Thank you very much. And there better be 31 answers coming up. 30. We'll let questioner off the hook. So your system is either going to make a DNS call and find out the IP address of that SMTP server, or it's already built into your email configuration utility. So it goes and is delivered to an SMTP server. The SMTP server must then look in the email header for the destination address. And he's got to find the domain. So maybe you send it to gmail.com or totalsem.com or whatever. And so he's got to find a POP server at that domain or an IMAP server at that domain. And he's got to find the IP address of it. And then he's going to package it up and send it to the next router, and it will get forwarded and forwarded through various routers until it winds up at the POP or IMAP server, where it's going to sit until some client on the other side calls that server, gives it the appropriate passwords and account names, calls the right IP address and says, hey, do you have mail for me? And if it's a POP server, he says, yes, I got mail for you. And this is a terrible way to remember it, but it so works for me. He pops it off the server and delivers it to the client, and maybe through multiple routers, because you could be anywhere in the world. Remember, POP servers don't hold original copies of emails, which is why I was thinking of them as popping them off. Or if it's an IMAP server, then an original will be kept and you can put it in folders and things like that. But the contents of that email will be forwarded to the client, to the email reader. So that's the broadest strokes we could do this in. By the way, while I'm at it, what's the IP address of a POP server and the port number for a POP server and the port number for an IMAP server? That ought to fill 7 minutes, right? All right, that's what I got. Anything more, Scott? How bad did I mangle that?
No, that was good.
Sweet.
Yeah, immediately like, how deep do we want to go? And
yeah,
people are like, go deep.
Yeah, I'd love to. We got 7 minutes and more people to ask questions. Plus, I think that's cheating. I don't know. Is asking us qualify as research? Yeah, I think, and that's why I kept the answer that way. So there's plenty of stuff left to research. Then you can talk about secure email, and you can talk about MIME and all kinds of other goodies in there. That's mine. I don't like Dell or HP, cheap parts. Okay. I will inform Michael Dell that you do not like his parts. Don't know the president or the CEO of HP anymore. Dude, you're getting a Dell. I love those old PC and Mac commercials. Hi, PC, I'm a Mac or whatever.
Those were fun.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we got enough questions to get through it all now.
Just looking at questions here.
Yep, 345. I'm looking at the one. Tell David Rush, believe it or not, that was me who pointed out the wires on the diagram. I do believe that. You're a sharp guy. That's why we talk with you. Yep, stuff breaks. Where are you at?
I'm just laughing at the whining about losing the contest. True. I mean, it was like
Yeah,
Mike is very clear that his contests are neither fair nor
fair.
fair. Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to pick a winner and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
We tend to like it a little bit more. Dave and I tend to like it a little bit more fair.
Yeah.
But
It's so tough with the lag. Just the three of us and the different order chat inputs that we get. It's one of the nice things about being this far behind is it kind of orders itself by then.
Yep.
Okay, good. Everybody, 25 for SMTP. And if you didn't know that before you came in here, I'm going to give you the way to remember this. This is so fun. Okay, it's really weenie and it's dumb, but it works. SMTP, simple male TP 25, with the 5 spelled with a PH. Scott is shaking his head like I'm an idiot, or he's trying to figure out what the heck I'm talking about.
I'm trying to, it's the latter.
Simple Mail TP. It stands for Transfer Protocol, but I always remember it as Simple Mail 25, port 25.
Oh. Well, okay then.
587, Patricia Grace goes for secure email. Way to go, secure SMTP.
Yep.
Fine.
And Andre's got the numbers, man.
Yeah, he does. I love doing it with certificates. 22. Well, that's secure, but no.
It's all right.
22 should be SSH-ish.
And Connor popped that up there almost immediately.
Yep. And then, okay, here comes the 110s for pops. Very nice. Are there?
Nobody put the IMAP?
Alternatives to Microsoft's SMTP relay for an internal server. Absolutely. That's one of the things that I've got set up in future for Pi Day Friday is to do your own mail server. What could be cooler than that? And for those of you who are doing Mike's exercise with Microsoft Server and building a domain, man, having your own mail server with your own domain, that's heavenly. Yeah, you're gonna have to port forward to gain access from the outside, and Microsoft Server, unless you coughed up the real bucks for it, it's only good for 6 months as a trial. But
so, Dave, I just wanted to point out, in case you hadn't looked in the mirror recently, you're a geek, man.
Yeah, rumor has it. I pale in comparison to some of the members of our company.
That's true. That's true. Very nice. We are down towards the end here.
I'm at 355. Tollywood, I'm going to design a new cat wiring standard, colors in order. Just work on the new cat wine standard and we'll go with that. Should have a label with 4 colors and white stripes. That was easy. Good. Yep. Simple Mail 25. Thanks for typing it in, Elbow. 135 IMAP, not quite. There you go. 143 Tollywood. Or 993 if we're doing secure. That's the only right answer, but I never even think of it because it's not in A+. It does get hit a little bit in Net Plus and Sec Plus. Hey, well, it's 58. We got about 2 minutes to shut this thing down. I'll throw up the contact and special slides one more time. We'll wind things up. So if you want to get in contact with us, because we're done with questions now on the chat, send us an email, michaelm@totalsem.com, Dave R@totalsem.com, Scott J, totalsem.com. It's only the beginning of the week, so I'm not going to do any gaming. We're working hard for real stuff. I don't game until the weekend. I know Scott games every day. But then when he gets done gaming, yeah, he starts working at 2 a.m. and works till noon. So our specials, 50% off, A+, Net Plus, Total Tester, and Total Tester / Sims bundles. Sec Plus Total Tender. Use Thunderbird 2020. Morgan David. Love that stuff. Mogan David, the only stuff that's not as good as cat pee flavored wine. Well, what do you got to close it out, Scott?
I posted the unofficial Discord channel in the chat. So if you guys want to join us on Discord after the AMA,
Yeah.
Mike should be back on Wednesday. I don't anticipate him missing 2 shows in a row.
Yeah.
So we should see him at 2:00 Central
Standard
Time.
Yep.
2
I will
o'clock,
be on
4 o'clock
Discord
Wednesday.
about 5 minutes after we shut down here. I got a couple of things to clean up and organize. So if anybody wants to hang out there and talk about more, we're there and ready to rock. Thank you once again, Jose Braden, for putting that up. That was very awesome of you.
Absolutely. So it's 4:00 now.
Yep.
I'm assuming that pretty soon Michael's going to go, have you given the wave?
Yep.
So it's time.
All right.
Ready?
So ready? You guys have a great night. Vote tomorrow.
And now it's time for the awkward stare.
Counting down. 5, 4. Okay. Well, there goes the arms on the live feed. Figured Michael would go